Let's get right into our next session. Campaign connections, how you can be a winner. NAIFA's National IFAPAC Chair, Doug Massey, will talk with Corey Anderson about the power of IFAPAC and the ways that financial professionals can get involved in local and federal campaigns, make connections with our elected officials, and create a favorable impression on behalf of NAIFA and our industry. Doug, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wes. Hello, I'm Doug Massey, Chair of the National IFAPAC Committee, the Insurance and Financial Advisors Political Action Committee. NAIFA's IFAPAC system has 1 federal PAC and 51 state PACs, which ensures NAIFA members like you and I, as well as the staff, have the opportunity to educate lawmakers on both Capitol Hill and in every state capital about issues that affect our ability to serve our clients, like state licensing, medical records, fiduciary definitions, retirement savings, and the tax treatment of our products. Over the last several election cycles, NAIFA's federal PAC has ranked #1 in supporting candidates for federal office in the insurance and securities industry. That is a distinction we are very proud of. But what does it mean to you and all NAIFA members, and what is a PAC, or Political Action Committee, in the first place, and why have one? Well, before I answer these questions, I would like to introduce my friend, my fellow IFAPAC committee member and diehard Vikings fan, the disability geek himself, Corey Anderson. Corey's from Minnesota and the father of 4. He is one of our 12 Yat of the Year award recipients, otherwise known as the Redcoats. Corey has also served in numerous other state and national leadership roles. Corey, would you help me to answer the questions I posed regarding IFAPAC and what that means for all NAIFA members? I know your experiences will give color and texture to these answers. Otherwise, it might all seem a little dry and boring.
Well, Doug, I suppose if you ask nicely, yes, I will. And by the way, Skol Vikings.
I understand you have some great news to share with us about some legislation in Minnesota that you and other Minnesota members have been working on, and many of us in NAIFA and the insurance industry have been watching.
Absolutely, Doug. So let's talk about our newest favorite subject, medical records. Everybody loves medical records. So what is IFAPAC? What is building relationships all about? And how does medical records have to do with this? Last time I checked, when people apply for insurance, getting medical records is a royal pain when it comes to disability or life insurance applications, and it takes forever. So let's start there and start talking about how that relates. With NAIFA, what it's all about is building relationships and getting that advocacy going. So going to the state level, working on relationships. So we started doing that years ago, and we started going to different members of our state House and state Senate to build certain relationships, going to our state governor's events, helping support him as well and go to his events. So we started doing this by supporting all of them, going to their events, things along those lines. Once in a while, we'd have some IFAPAC support. Sometimes we wouldn't. We'd just go and represent our industry and represent NAIFA. So we did that at the state level and started getting involved. And we kept, with our lobbyists, what we did is we asked our lobbyists to get involved as well. And what's different about Minnesota is we have 2 lobbyists, one representing the left side of the aisle, one representing the right, or however you want to call it. We have 2 different lobbyists. And so what we started doing is drafting this bill on medical records and said, you know what, let's see if we can get a bill passed that requires the medical care providers to release medical records within a defined period. And that defined period we originally started with was 15 calendar days, which eventually became 20 calendar days. And so during this process, one of the events we went to is I was talking to our state senator, who happens to be a State Farm agent, and he's the head of the Senate in Minnesota. And we were talking about it, and he said, well, I don't know about that medical records bill. I have some directors that have issues with it. We said, okay, who are those directors? And we went to them at this event and started talking to them about their issues, and soon found out it has to deal with data privacy and nothing to deal with actually releasing medical records. So we addressed that issue. They said, okay, great, we can get behind that. And so we started gathering some support over this period of time, and we introduced the bill, went into session. We got one gentleman who is the director, the commissioner, what did we call it? The committee, basically he ran the committee, the commissioners committee or whatever on political affairs stuff. And he said, you know what, I'll support this bill. I'll get behind it and I'll be the author of it. So he became the author. And then we did that on the House side as well and got somebody behind that, the chair of her committee. So we started that process and we had worked on it over a couple of years. And the best news about it is we finally got to have a hearing on it this past session. Well, that session started in early March. I went in, testified on that medical records bill. And literally as we're sitting at the table, somebody starts throwing us a couple of curveballs and wants to change the bill and change the bill this way. Next thing you know, a chiropractor says, hey, I want to have it longer. I'm like, okay, which is interesting because he had told me he didn't care beforehand, but then he changed it the last second. Then a doctor got behind our bill and said, that's reasonable. He said, but I'd like to make a change. Instead of it being 20 business days, we want it to be 30 calendar days. And so it became 30 calendar days. We testified and then COVID hit. And what we had during this whole process is our lobbyists working behind the scenes regularly to get this approved. And it came down literally to like the 11th hour. And they ended up going and getting this bill passed. Our legislature is every year only meets for a couple of months. And their last session was at 11:59 p.m. this last Sunday night. And we got it approved by the House and by the Senate. And literally we did it on Sunday late in the day. And we almost had it lost. But our lobbyists figured out a couple of ways, reintroduced a bill, brought a couple other people to the table and made it happen. And the reason it almost did not happen, medical marijuana. Medical marijuana was getting tied into our bill. What's my point in all of this? Our lobbyists stayed focused. We stayed focused. We kept working on our relationships and leaning in on these people and saying, hey, we need your support of this bill. We need to get this bill across. And the good news is medical records, hopefully will be signed in by the governor, which we believe it will this week. And now it's the law of the land starting in August. All medical records must be released in Minnesota within 30 calendar days.
That's great news, Corey. Thank you for that. And we're all proud of NAPA Minnesota for their efforts in getting this done. Hopefully this is something we'll see federation-wide or countrywide soon. Before we get started with another story Corey has to share with us, let me answer, what is a PAC? A political action committee is nothing more than a group of like-minded people, such as NAPA members, who want to amplify their voice in the legislative process. So NAPA members pool our resources together to support candidates for office at the state and federal level who understand the important role we play in Main Street America's saving for their financial future. IFAPAC is the agent or advisor's career protection insurance. So Corey, talk to us about how IFAPAC has helped you work with Congressman Tom Emmer, beginning with how you first met him.
Well, Doug, advocacy is very important to your business. And I look at this business as you only have half of a life insurance practice or half of a financial planning practice or half of a disability practice if you don't have advocacy. So that's why we're wearing half of a goatee, to bring home the message that it's more than just your half of showing up and suiting up for your business. You need to bring the advocacy part. That's the part that's missing for a lot of people. So we want them to bring the advocacy to the table. And if you're not at the table as one of the participants, you're on the menu like Tom and a few others said earlier. So let's talk about, well, now Congressman Emmer, but at the time it was one of our state legislators, Mr. Emmer. And so we're meeting Mr. Emmer. I went to my first day on the Hill. Nervous as can be, 20-something years old, maybe had a few more hairs up top. Definitely didn't have the goatee or the half goatee. But anyways, I go to that meeting, and I was supposed to meet with a different legislator. Long story short, I meet with him, but he was really hurried. And he said, I got to get over to the floor. We're going to take a vote, and I got to get over there now, but you can come with me. I'm like, okay. And he goes, do you have your driver's license? I'm like, sure, yeah, I've got it. I'm like thinking, oh gosh, hopefully I don't have any record or something that they're going to find out about. So I go with Congressman Emmer, well, at the time, Representative Emmer, and we go over and we're talking on the way, and I go, so you're a lawyer? Tell me about being a lawyer. I'm like, you love suing people, huh? He just laughs and he goes, No, he goes, actually, you know what's funny is I represent insurance companies. I go, oh, so are you suing the insurance company or representing? He goes, no, I represent them. You guys are the good guys. Insurance people are good. I go, okay, great. So we talk a little bit about his law practice and all that stuff. We finally get to the floor, and literally he has to say, Corey's with me. You got to let him in. Technically, I'm not supposed to be there. I'm not supposed to be allowed on the floor, and I'm supposed to be pre-done or pre-approved and go through a whole bunch of hoops to make sure I'm an okay person. Long story short, they swipe my driver's license. They let me in, and I'm standing there with him about 5 minutes before session starts. And literally the next thing you know, another representative comes up and they start going back and forth in total like gibberish to me from the standpoint of a bunch of laws and this and that. And they're jumping back and forth. And they go back and forth and they're talking about basically they're brokering a deal right in front of me where literally somebody's on the chopping block. I don't know who it was, but somebody was on the chopping block. Somebody wasn't going to be happy with what just happened. And another person was going to be very happy, or another industry. And I literally watched in front of me something that just got brokered literally in front of me. And I realized really quickly, and this was like my first day at the Hill, that you're either at the table or you're on the table. And I don't want them brokering that deal in a bad way for me. I want it to be in a good way for our industry. So make sure you have a full advocate or a full insurance practice or a full financial plan, not half a plan and not having the advocacy part.
Great. Corey, that is an awesome experience, getting to see government in action right before your eyes. I wonder if that is what it was like in 1913 when NAIFA members negotiated directly with President Woodrow Wilson to secure the tax treatment of life insurance, the product we use to help secure a family's financial security. Experiences like Corey is why in the summer of 1966, NAIFA formed the Federal PAC. And by the early 1970s, the IFA-PAC system was in full swing. Why did NAIFA form these 52 PACs? Well, this slide gives all the answers, but let me add, NAIFA, like other associations and corporations, cannot support candidates directly. It is strictly prohibited by the Federal Election Commission and similar state agencies. Since NAIFA cannot, it is incumbent that NAIFA members and employees support the PAC. As Corey realized a decade ago, IFA-PAC allows NAIFA members and professional staff to not only be seen, but also heard by lawmakers. Sometimes we even get to utilize our clients to help educate lawmakers on how a piece of legislation will affect not only NAIFA members, but millions of Americans' financial future. I digress. Let's go back to Corey. Okay, DI Geek. So what happens next? Because I know at some point, State Representative Tom Emmer becomes Congressman Tom Emmer.
Well, Doug, if you want to be the DI geek, you got to shave half of that goatee so you can become part of the team. But I know you're into advocacy, so I'll let you get a pass on this one. Everybody else might want to think about taking half off. But with that said, Mr. Emmer at the time, or Representative Emmer, who becomes Congressman Emmer, in the meantime starts doing a radio show, eventually runs for governor, and unfortunately, in the land of Jesse Ventura, the wrestler, he doesn't get approved for being governor, and instead, eventually he runs for Congress. So Congressman Emmer runs for Congress, becomes elected to the 6th District in 2014. He was an up-and-comer within the Republican Party at the national level, and eventually over time, he ends up becoming he's the chair of the National Republican Campaign Committee. So he's basically in charge of, I believe, the money for the Republicans on the House side and getting everybody reelected. He's kind of a big deal. He's a wonderful guy. Over the years, though, we've built that relationship. Gone and supported him at different events that he has, gone and gotten to know him over those times. We've gone golfing. I don't know if they're going to show some pictures. They might not be appropriate, but the wonderful pictures. I even have one of me. I looked like I was going to punch him. Somebody else was going to take a golf club to his head. He loves having fun with us. He does goofy selfies with us, and we've just gotten to know him over the years. If I see him on an airplane going to DC, we sit and talk about life, different events. When I'm at his events, he looks across the room, he'll see me, and he'll literally make eye contact and give me a wave, and then usually we'll talk at those different events. So we've worked on supporting him and building that relationship with him over the years to get to a point where it's solid. Also, he even left me a voicemail one day. I got a random call from a random phone number. I listen to the voicemail and it's Congressman Emmer, Corey, I'm calling to check in with you. How's the insurance business? How's everything going? How's the family? I about fell out of my chair going, why is he calling me? But I called him back and very surprised he answered. Next thing you know, he's asking me about the industry, what's going on in my practice, how's the wife, how's the kids, all that stuff. So we've worked on that relationship and built it with him over the years. In fact, we're doing an event this summer where NAIFA's gotten on board and is going to help, so the IFAPAC's going to help support it as well, is we are doing a boating event. And the agreement was that I won't kill him on the boat. That was literally what they said to me. They go, you just can't kill him on the boat. I go, I won't kill him. I'll keep him alive. So he's never wake surfed in his life. And I said, what a great event. Let's do wake surfing this summer out on my boat. We'll go out on Lake Minnetonka. We'll take him and 10 other advisors and get to know him some more. And so we're going to take him wake surfing. Hopefully COVID allows it in August and do that fundraiser. So Congressman Emmer, to us, I believe is a big deal. I even look at the NAIFA Government Affairs Director, Mike Hedge, as he says he's in charge of this Republican elected, or getting the Republicans elected to Congress. He's a big deal. And we appreciate all he's done for our industry and always had a listening ear for us.
Well, Corey, thank you for sharing this story and your relationship with Congressman Emmer. As you know, today would have been the day you, I, and hundreds of other NAIFA members and staff would be on Capitol Hill and meeting with members of Congress and their staff to discuss NAIFA's hot issues, such as the tax treatment of our products and retirement savings. Elections are expensive. The average cost of a U.S. Senate race is over $10 million. The average U.S. House campaign is over $4.5 million. Even races for state representative and assembly persons can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. IFAPAC's goal for the year is to raise $1,750,000. In no way is IFAPAC's maximum support of $10,000 to any candidate buying votes or securing that new legislation or regulations will be proposed or passed. What it does do is let the lawmakers know that we have an active and powerful group of constituents, NAIFA members from across America, standing at the ready to educate and have an open dialogue about any proposed bill that would help or hinder our ability to do business. IFAPAC is your career protection insurance. The PAC will not prevent bad legislation or regulation, but it helps us to have a seat at the table. And as the saying goes, if you do not have a seat at the table, you are on the menu. Corey, you shared with us some great examples of the value of NAIFA, IFAPAC, and our amazing government affairs team. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I'd say show up, suit up, get involved, do it scared. I was scared for many, many years. Still I'm scared when I go to the Day at the Hill many times. I've probably been at the national level at least 20 times. And I still am scared a little bit, but show up, suit up, and make sure that you're turning your half insurance practice, your half financial practice into a full one. You're missing the advocacy part. You need to get there. You need to be part of it so that we're not on the table, on the menu, but we're at the table instead. Show up and suit up. And I appreciate all of you, each and every one of you.
Great. PACs are the only offensive measure in your toolkit. They are a tool to help elect the right people to office. Once they are elected, our other advocacy tools, lobbying, grassroots outreach, public relations, etc., come into play. PACs also show that your association, NAIFA, is a visible player in the political arena and about the issues you care about the most. Every PAC is capped at giving $5,000 per candidate per primary and general election for a total of $10,000. This levels the playing field. Our support is bipartisan. We do not favor Republicans or Democrats. We need to have relationships on both sides of the aisle. What the PAC offers is a way for members to meet candidates, share their story, and express their top concerns and issues. This does not mean that any legislator will support legislation based on a conversation. It is merely a way to have additional interactions about important issues. As I mentioned before, PAC is not only legal, but highly regulated. Everything our government relations team does with the PAC is monitored by the Federal Election Commission. In fact, PACs are a great way for millions of Americans to get engaged in the political process. Most PACs, including IFAPAC, go through a very thoughtful process to determine how best to spend money, looking at issues, footprint, key committees, and likelihood of re-election. As chair of the PAC, I also chair our candidate selection group, which is the body of NAIFA members who approve which candidates NAIFA will support at the federal level, and each state has a similar group of members to do the same with the state PAC dollars. I can attest to the thoughtful look each candidate, the staff, and the candidate selection group take before approving PAC dollars. Lastly, I will leave with this slide right here. If you would like to learn more, please go to www.naifa.org/advocate.